Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Another awesome week. We made it.
Yes, indeedy, we have made it. Need to put tape on my jewelry biters. They leave marks on my copper. I'm making little scroll rings.
Oh, cool.
Thanks.
That's fun.
Yeah,
I love how you're always doing things with your hands.
I've always been a creative.
Yeah, I love that about you.
Thanks. Yeah, I got to make stuff. I just got to do it.
Well, it's important for all of us. It's a very healing component
Yeah.
to be able to do things with your hands.
Well, it's the one where my whole family is artistic. And my grandmother, to help me with being autistic, she didn't know I was autistic. Nobody knew. We didn't talk about that in the 50s. It wasn't a
Right?
thing. And but she helped me behave myself by giving me things to do
Mm,
and creative things to do, make doll clothes. She'd
mm.
help me learn how to cut them out and figure out how to make a pattern that would fit the doll and then how to sew it up. Um,
That's
she had
awesome.
she had jars of buttons, and she would take all of the different jars of buttons and dump them in a big bowl and let me sort them. And I could sort them according to color, size, whatever my little heart desired.
Mm.
Um, and and then the next time I would come, because I went to her house every day after school in elementary school, and also how to wind balls of yarn,
Mm.
because she would buy the skeins of yarn that were wonky and had been pulled, and she would get them for a great discount. And so you had to know how to wind the balls to where it didn't stretch the fibers. So here's an example of one of my rolled balls. This is crochet cotton.
Cool.
And so, it's like I'm a pro yarn roller. I am a professional yarn roller. But it's uh too funny.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
That just
morning.
reminded me, Leslie, when we were little kids, my grandmother had a spinning wheel and they used to shear the
Mm.
goats, the alpacas. What are
Yes.
they?
Angora.
Merino,
Oh, okay.
Angora. And we used to sit there holding the big skeins of wool and everything as she was feeding them through. That was so beautiful to watch.
Isn't it
And she'd
fun?
be
It's just great.
twirling them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
so
love it.
relaxing.
Yes, indeedy. And so this is something I've started. This is going to be like little links that join and make a chain. And I made an anklet. I'm dallying with this copper because I want to. It's like I've got all these beads. Here's one, and to put them all together, to make earrings. Put a bunch of different links and stuff together to make earrings. I'll show you the anklet I made. I'll go get it. And this I just did by twisting the wire. So here's my little anklet. And there's the little clasp
Mm.
So cute.
thing. Just comes apart and then hooks together. It's comfortable enough that you can sleep in it, you know.
They never stay on me. Anklets, I can put it on, and within a couple of hours, every time they're on the ground. I've given
Interesting.
up.
Well, this
Never
one's
been
kind
able
of,
to.
yeah. It depends on the clasp, I guess. We'll have to figure out you a clasp. I made this necklace too. It's just copper that is that
I
threaded
love
the,
arty people.
and then I made that's the clasp. It
Beautiful.
just hooks on itself.
It's good for your body too, copper.
Yeah, it is good. That's why I started making it. See, these are the little scroll rings I made.
Mm.
And I want to make scroll rings. It's like I can sell those for $5. It's like, somebody may want, and if I carry them around with me, I may, sell them. I'm always looking for ways to make money because I've always done that since I've never been able to hold a job. And it's been a way to have money. I like money, but I had to figure out a way to do it without, people telling me I was no good and firing me every 5 minutes. It's like, okay, this is no fun. Working for
Yeah,
somebody is no fun. I get fired all the time, and that sucks.
yeah, it does.
It really does. And it's like, what did I do wrong? But I always managed to do something that got me fired. So I like working from home.
Mm.
I just got this to show you, Leslie.
Oh, pretty. Yeah.
Nice,
Oh, cool. It's just
nice.
like a thumb wrap. How cool is that? That's a
Yeah,
great
copper.
idea. Yeah, it
But
looks like
then I read somewhere that Virgos shouldn't wear copper. Go figure.
right.
No wonder why it jumps
So it's
off you.
literally just like that.
Yeah, I can see that. That's really cool.
Yep.
And that's, I know I could
Yeah.
make something fun.
This is
Yeah.
the really thick copper. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the
I'm thinking
wire.
it's
Yeah,
about, I think it's about the
that.
size of this. It's about a 14 gauge wire. And I'm looking
Yeah.
for a source of 14 gauge copper. I may have to go to the hardware store for the big
Well,
copper.
well, we definitely gotta have like a show and tell one day.
Love it.
Um, what did you say, Dylan, about Virgos not wearing copper?
I said, no wonder why it just jumps off of you.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you could even reshape that to be a bracelet where where it
Oh,
would go around here.
there you go.
There you go. It'll be fun because
I
they're
mean,
they're simple to shape.
it's the little things, right? It's so fun.
It is.
Yeah, you're talking about how you love money. I have a part of me that doesn't love money, but then I have another part of me that loves money, and there's definitely a tug of war happening between these two parts around
Right.
money and not money, uh, which is kind of also too where we left off on the last call. Actually, Leslie, I think you dropped off towards the end because you had your other
Yeah.
class, but we
Yeah.
left off right in what's called polarization, where we have these two parts. Uh, they're both trying to protect the self, right? But they have very different approaches to how they do it, and sometimes they don't like each other while they're protecting the self.
Yes. I've experienced that some.
I'll
My main protector is a shutting down. And
shutting down.
yeah, that's my main protector is I just find myself I've shut down and I don't know what happened until, I'm coming out of being shut down. And especially when I feel like people are attacking me, I shut
Hmm.
down. I can't hear anything that's being said. I can't read anything. I can't, it's like, and I can't help it. That protector, shutdown protector is very good at what they do.
Yeah, I mean they've spent the whole amount of time practicing, right?
Yeah,
They've been
perfecting.
get they've been getting it down. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Um,
it's yep. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say I've never had money. Um, the only time I've ever had access to money was when I was married to Tim because he was quite wealthy and he loved like the finer things. I don't know whether I like I have I come from a scarcity mindset, you know, being a sole parent with two little kids and a deadbeat ex and all of that. And I feel it's okay, it's okay to want money. I mean, I don't want money, I just don't want to be broke. But I think
Exactly.
it's what you want it for. Like Tim liked the finer things and he worked very hard for his money and he bought what he wanted, you know, when he wanted it, and that was all fine. But I could never get into the habit of just buying something because I wanted it. But I
Mm,
think if it depending on what you want to do with it. So Dylan, when you say you like money, I reckon probably 90% of that is because I can help so many more people, which is very different to wanting money so you can buy your next car.
mm.
Right. And you already have 12. And it's like, I just want to be able to pay for the things that I need, like groceries, gas,
I can't
electricity.
I I can't get my dog medication at the moment because I can't afford it. She's weeing
Exactly.
all over the house. She's incontinent. She's 11 and a half. I'm just cleaning up behind her as best I can because I don't have $145 for medication. I just don't.
Exactly. Been there, done that. My whole life has been like that because I can't work. It's
Right.
been really hard, and that's why I like money because I like to be able to pay things on time, to have what I need to pay my bills. And it's like somebody said, I need, when I need new glasses, I like to be able to buy them. And if you can't and you need glasses, you find that very demoralizing and hurtful when you can't see anymore and you're wearing glasses and you really want to be able to see well,
Mm-hmm.
or you need to fix your teeth. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, please, I want to fix my teeth. I don't want to lose teeth. I want to fix them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It is a different life. 2 years ago, 29th of July 2024 was my last day of work. From working full time, everything to disability in 18 months. It's just bizarre to me. And I'm still
Right.
struggling to actually work my way work my way around it. I'm used to just putting things on my credit card and paying it off, and but
Yeah,
there ain't no credit card. I can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul because there ain't no Peter.
exactly. I get it. I get it, sister. Been there. Yeah. Learn how to do without quite well.
Yeah, to me, that's like the heart of abundance is how to make the most with the least that you have. And I find it fascinating because I work with clients that, have millions of dollars and they still have a scarcity conversation. It's like different than living check to check and trying to figure out stuff, but they still feel inadequate and they're just trying to fill a void inside of them with their money, which is pretty interesting where a lot of their relationships are basically around how much money you're giving people. And it's definitely an interesting lifestyle. So I guess what they say, mo money, mo problems, definitely is a thing.
I love $1 million listing. I can't help it. I love all these rich people arguing and being horrible to each other. But they were selling like a $7.9 million property, and the buyer wanted all the furniture, but the seller wanted them to buy the furniture. The chandeliers, like $100,000 chandeliers, right? And they're going, no, no, we want full price for that. And Frederick's going, but they're 2 years old. You've heard of depreciation, right? So they actually brought these figures to these people and said, this is what your stuff is actually worth now. And they're bickering, going, no, no, no. And this guy said, are you seriously fighting over $100,000 on a $9 million property? And it's like, Dylan, what you're saying, like scale it down to someone else who has a different problem, but they're fighting, me, I'm worried over $140. But it's like you have all of this money, but you still need to be right and in front. Can't
Mm.
just give the furniture away because you want the $100,000. And I just find that so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's
Well, so what we're
not
really
to do with the
seeing,
money a lot of the time. Sorry,
yeah,
Dylan.
what we're really seeing is this right here, this polarization about how to
Mm.
protect the self. That's really what's happening, where you have different managers and protectors coming up to try to fix or solve the situation around the, if I lose more, if I give this money away, I'm gonna have less, right? Or whatever it is, I'm going to feel rejected or demoralized, right? Leslie even mentioned, right? So there's like all these things that come up, and obviously, like these parts have different ways on how they're trying to address the situation, right? They're really just trying to reduce the suffering around this conversation of lack, which we all know is the heart of pride, or from A Course in Miracles, is the belief in separation, right? That's really at the core of what these parts are really trying to fight over or fight about, and where these internal conflicts over time become exhausting and they become depleting and depressing. And what we're really noticing with these parts is that they're all just trying to help, and they just have very different approaches to it. So the key, instead of choosing one protector over another protector, the key is to be curious about both protectors and spend time with each one as they reveal themselves and as they show themselves, especially around anything that has you purchase something or commit to something. There's these psychological parts that start to come out and kind of do their thing. Like everyone has these experiences, no matter what it is, right?
What I
And
found so bizarre about it, though, Dylan, was that if the whole sale was in danger of being lost over this one thing, and it's like, do they care that they're risking all of this? Is that because they have enough money not to worry about anybody else?
I mean, every person's specific, so I couldn't really tell you, but I could
I
100%
know, yeah,
guarantee that they have protectors that are protecting the vulnerable exiled ones. And there's a core
regardless of the
belief.
outcome.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
core belief down in that exile that's carrying this limiting belief that's wrapped around the nickel and diming, or I mean, and it's not even a bad thing to get a deal on something, right? There's nothing wrong about that. But it's when these
Sure,
when these
yeah.
parts are coming from a survival space, that's where you could definitely see it's coming from a lack, or this right, this like emptiness, or even it could feel like a rejection or an abandonment in some kind of way, right? Or even like a betrayal. Sometimes it could feel like a betrayal, especially if, let's say that this resources was passed down from your family, right? We could see a legacy burden even being created with passing down, uh, things that, what are they called? My mom just said this word the other day. I can't remember what it was now. It's not like an inheritance, but it's like, a special object that you get, a sentimental object that's like that. It's like there's no value to it that you get from people, your elders passing it down. I can't remember the name right now. What you called it, um, right? But those things, like, they definitely trigger different stuff, especially around. I mean, remember about the burdens that we talked about that these parts carry, right? So really, the circumstance is just prime for these parts to kind of get activated and start to figure out how to protect the self, even though there might not be an actual threat, right? Because who knows? Maybe some of these people who are in that position, maybe they once were in a poverty place and they did get wealth, right? And then they're like, oh, I don't want to get back into that space. So, right, like there's so many different angles and burdens on how it could play out. But something that you can guarantee about is that all of the protectors and the vulnerable ones are exhausted. Like they don't feel excited about it. They don't feel like they're in the flow about it. Now, that it is possible for them to have that type of experience with whatever 9 million home they're selling with $100,000 chandeliers, right? Because it could be even like $100,000 home with $10 light bulbs, and you can have this happen, right? Like I spent $12 on two batteries at the store the other day for smoke detectors. I was like, this is ridiculous. $12 for two freaking batteries? That's $6 a battery. Like, what the
Exactly.
heck? Right? And there's a part of me that was just like, man, I don't like that. Like, should I even buy the batteries? And then another part of me was like, well, I don't want to hear that beeping all night long. Right? So then I was like,
And
all
also,
right,
I don't want to die in a fire.
I'll just, really, it was about the beeping, not the fire, right? Because how often does the fire happen versus this beeping? The beeping's going to be way more prevalent than the fire, right? But,
Yes.
like, and then another part of me is just like, well, I get to be grateful to spend $12 on batteries. Like, if this is my problem right now, I mean, I'm doing pretty good, you know? So I got the
First
batteries.
world problems.
Right, but I had all these like parts kind of like tug of warring and being in this polarity about freaking batteries, man. Like it was $12. Like it's really not that much, but these parts were making a big ordeal about it, you know? And that's what I got to in that moment learn how to or be with where what their concerns were and just listen to them. I didn't try to fix anything. I didn't try to convince them like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. No, I didn't do any of that. I just literally was curious with each one of them. I was like, oh, thanks for sharing that. That was interesting. And then
Yeah.
I jumped to the other part and I listened to that part's side. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
That's
Right?
really good. I have, I'm experiencing this week because I have, because I keep numbing out and that's I have like a protector that protects me and thinks that treats me like I can't do anything.
Hmm.
And like you're too immature, you just don't know how. And then there's another opposing protector that says, no, she does know, can learn how, and she does need to practice. And you're stopping her from being able to move forward. And
Hmm.
she's not here anymore. She's here. Quit keeping her here in her diaper when she's been potty trained for 20 years. It's like stop putting a diaper on her. Dang. So they're fighting each other, all the time. And I'm sitting here going, I think I'll take a nap because this is too exhausting to listen
Yeah.
to BS going on. Everybody's fighting over how they're
Yeah.
going to treat me. I'm going to take a nap.
Yeah, and the one who wants to take a nap is another part, even,
Yes,
right?
it is.
It's like, I'm tired of this shit. We're going to sleep now,
Escape, escape.
right?
Right? Like, shut up, everybody. I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's such a different experience when self comes into the relationships,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of what I was describing with the battery situation. If I didn't come with myself, the seat of consciousness, and be with each part of these parts of me that were acting out or kind of having as what we call as a mental, right? They're having some kind of mental that they really just wanted me to be present with them and to relate to what they were actually saying. And
Right.
I didn't really, that's why I didn't have to like force them or anything because I'm just learning how to be in relationships with them. And some of these parts that are revealing themselves, I mean, obviously they've always been there, but think about like some of these parts of mine, they were hidden in a dungeon that I kept locked and I just recently unlocked them. And now they're like coming out and I'm applying these 8 C's and 5 P's, right? The connection, the clarity, the compassion, being curious, being calm, being creative with even how to be in relationship with some of these parts, and then obviously courageous because it's really challenging. Some of these parts I've written off, right, or other parts writ these parts off, right. But when I'm coming from this self place, there's a whole new playfulness and perspective that shows up, and so much more patience shows up in the space that, like it's like all my parts calm down, right, and then from there it's the awareness that develops in each of these parts that actually stops me from reacting to them and being consumed by them and starting to respond to them and starting to like really having that moment of pause and allowing myself to actually be with the sensations, the different things that are popping up in my body that are really these parts just screaming at me, right? And they're trying to get me to pay attention to them, right? And every single time this presence comes in, the presence of the self, every single time, whatever the story is, whatever the experience is, whatever the role is that that part's playing, it's like the self is like able to dismantle the whole thing just by being with it, right? Not really forcing it or anything like that. They're like really excited to actually unburden themselves, or at least some of these parts are. Not all my parts, not yet, right? Because they still got that relationship that we're building, but but it's the same practice that I'm doing with all of them. Even some of these parts that I have a great relationship with, I let these parts know, and part of their new roles is that they can go and help the other parts come to the surface and see that, I'm not so scary as they think, and right, all this stuff that they kind of make up about whatever it is that they're making up about why they don't want to receive healing, or love, or compassion, or connection, or appreciation, or whatever it is, right? Tenderness, which is also a really big one, that some of these parts I'm working with, being tender is like is a threat for them. Experiencing tenderness is a threat for them, right? Just because of how these parts were wired back when I was growing up. But this is like the key part right here is the self, right? And this is where I think 99% of humanity is struggling with, is how to access this self and then how to reparent their parts inside of them, which obviously we call as becoming self-led, right? So like I said, in this being self-led, like I did with my parts with the batteries, instead of reacting to what they were saying, I took a moment. I literally had to stop with, I was like in the line and or in the aisle, and I'm like looking for the specific battery that I needed. And then I saw the price, and I was looking at the other prices, and I was just like, and all these parts came up. I literally had to stop what I was doing in that moment just to like tend to these parts that were yelling at me. I literally couldn't decide on a freaking bat. There was only one option on what I needed, but
Right.
these parts felt like, I don't know, man. Like there's a million options, but there's literally only one thing I could have grabbed because it was a 9 volt I needed. So it wasn't like a double A or a triple A. It was a 9 volt. There was only one line with 9 volts. I didn't have any options. But these parts were like, they're stunned, they're frozen. They didn't really even know what to do in that moment until self showed up. And then self met each of these parts right when the trigger happened, right? As soon as that it showed up, I created space for it. I'm working with ether as an element, which is about creating spaciousness. I even called in ether to help me create space with these parts because they're so loud, right? I was just like, whoa, it kind of like disoriented me. And then
Right.
that's how I was able to start noticing the parts. Just like letting the disorientation go away, letting self be there. I felt the spirit of ether come in. And then I was like, okay, now I can be with these parts. Now I can actually see them as they're sharing all their things that they're sharing. And I had to tell one of them, hey, take a step back for a moment, and I'm going to be with this part first. And then that's what happened. It literally took me 2 minutes to be with that part. And then I said, okay, now let's go to the other part. And I did this all by standing there without even taking the battery off yet, right? I'm just like looking at the batteries on the aisle. And
Right.
then as I grabbed the battery, two more parts popped up as I was walking down the aisle. So as I'm walking down the aisle to go purchase these batteries, I'm self-leading these parts, and I'm like working through, it was like 4 or 5 different parts who are polarized with one another. And I was just being with each one of them as I was walking through the aisle going to purchase them. Some of them definitely didn't want to be unburdened, and some of them I'm working with now, right? Since that experience has happened, I think yesterday. I'm losing track of time, but I think it was yesterday that it happened. And all these parts feel seen and heard, even though some of them still got stuff they're working through and they're burdened with. But the relationship has been established, right? The relationship has been established, and now self is able to connect with these parts like effortlessly. They're able to hear these parts effortlessly. They're able to see where their own choices are taking impact because self is just showing up and showing them these things, right? They're able to be even curious about some of the stuff that yesterday they were triggered about, right? But today, and I showed up with them and I'm like, how are you guys today, right? I didn't just have that experience yesterday and then say, oh, that was just a moment and I forget about them. No, no, no. The next morning, I'm now like tending. I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing from yesterday? Is there anything else we could process and be with today, right? Anything else that you want to share with me today, right? And I'm just leading with compassion, and some of these parts are fearful, right? So it's like I got this angst and fear on one side, and then I just got the self that's just being with it, right? And just allowing it, not resisting it, not pushing it away, not making it bad and wrong, just literally being with it, just being present. And there's just this inner resource of safety that comes in that moment, right? And resilience, where you're really able to balance. It's almost like balancing the scales, right? And I know you guys are already experiencing this too in your life. Now that you're noticing these parts and especially how to unblend from them, right? Because this self-led experience isn't possible if you're blended. And that doesn't mean that we'll never get activated or triggered again, but it just means that now we're learning how to relate to the activation with awareness. And usually when we get activated, we become unaware, right? And we have the parts kind of play themselves out, right? And we're learning now how to really just have these parts take a step back. Okay,
I
questions or
love
comments so far?
comment from me. I love to people watch like wherever I go. I find people very interesting. And I often think to myself, I wonder what that person's thinking. And I was just sitting here thinking, oh my God, they would be in shock if they knew what you were thinking. I'm thinking about ether. I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. Dylan's in another freaking galaxy in the middle of a hardware store. Cracks me up.
That's great. So something too that's key about what we're sharing here, that let's say that I tried to approach these parts without self, right? Hypothetically, let's say I was blended, right? So that means that the situation would have triggered me. I would have reacted. Maybe a part of me would have felt regret or disconnected or more pain about it. But even if somebody were to try to talk to me in that moment, I would probably be very rude to them or like very irritable or very like why are you talking to me, right? This is if self wasn't there, right? But even with all these parts that were happening, let's say, I bumped into somebody, I would have been able to show up in self with them too. I would have let these parts know, hey, I'm going to come back to you. And then I would have showed up with that person and been super present, curious, playful. They wouldn't even have even known that I was triggered by anything, right? And it's just because this is the difference on when self shows up and when self is not available, right? Or we don't have the capacity to enter self, meaning unblend from our blended states to actually start to develop this better relationship with these protectors. And this also too, this practice is really how deeper trust is developed. So I hear all the time, oh, I don't trust myself. Oh, I don't trust other people. I hear so much about trust because people put trust in this box of criteria that they don't recognize that when you're self-led, you're trusting of everything. You're trusting of even distrust, even, right? So you're like, oh, something was off about what that person said. Cool, mental no, right? And you're trusting that your body and your intuition and everything's working appropriately on why that was something that came into your awareness to pay attention to, right? And you see trust is in the moment, actually, right? It's not really in a criteria of something before or after, right? And this all comes from this self-led, especially when the self is with these parts in an unblended state, which is again why we're going to go over unblending, just because this is how we actually get to the next step of unburdening, right? And if we can't unblend, we're never going to be able to unburden. And that's really what the whole point of building a relationship with these protectors and the vulnerable parts are for, is so you can actually start to create space inside. And that's where I mentioned the spirit of ether, right? Because ether is all about spaciousness. It's all about what's called initiation, meaning that you're moving from one space, creating space, an in between moment, and going into another, a transitional space, right? And this is really where, people, when they're overwhelmed, this is the heart of what they need, is the spaciousness, to be able to unblend from the overwhelming sensations and emotions that these parts are kind of triggering in the body.
I feel like that happened to me a little bit with the motorhome. I just
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself, everything around me is just out of my control. I don't own the house. The girls are, I've got no say in what is going on around me. And if I don't trust myself now, when am I going to trust myself? And I did it. It was a big leap of faith for me, but I just felt
Beautiful.
like it was something that I didn't know that I could do it. I still don't. I still don't know if I'm going to make it down there. But to even go and look at it was a massive thing for me. And I just
Absolutely.
did it. Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
felt
and I
like I
know,
didn't really have a choice
well, and I
much.
know, I know when you shared it with me, a part of you was excited, and
Yeah,
then there's another part of you that was like, "What did I just do?"
I know. What the fuck did I just do? Exactly. Oh my God. I've never even
Yeah.
driven a motorhome. Now I've got a cat and a dog and me to drive 24-hour trip. But yeah, and you know what? When I sent it to you and I said that Georgia had ripped in and you said I'm not surprised about that. The first thing you
Right.
said was I'm really proud of you. And that's I'm really proud of me too.
Yeah. Well, I know the parts that you were working with to do all of that, and you did it on your own,
I
right?
know.
So I know that was like another big thing too, that you did it on your own. You didn't feel like you need other people to help you or jump in or figure it out, right? Like that's amazing, because in that moment you were actually able to unblend from parts and have self lead, right? In those moments you're able to do that. You're able to remember in those moments that you have parts, that you're not the part, right? Or the
Yeah.
various parts, because there's a lot of different parts that were popping up through the whole process from start to finish, right?
When she handed me my new number plates to put on the vehicle, I cried. I thought, I can't
Mm.
believe it. First I looked at it, then I bought it, then I got it roadworthy.
Come on.
Ah,
Look
oh,
at
Mm.
did
all
it
the
just happen?
progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something you said in your languaging too was like, "Oh, I didn't really feel like I had a choice." But the
Yeah.
awareness to see what was happening in every single moment that you were doing things, it did give you a choice on how to choose to respond to those situations that were popping up,
Right,
right? And
right.
then
Yeah.
from there, that's where your parts are actually becoming more free and feeling, like you said, there's a part of you that was really ecstatic, and then obviously there's another part like, holy crap, what did I just do? Just
What I
because
do, yeah.
the unknown is now showing up, right? You're out of your comfort box, you're out of your safe zone, and now you're like exploring this new terrains that these parts aren't. They're not aware of these things, right?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
And
that's
one part of me has to learn to pee in a motorhome.
right.
You can do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, but so why I congratulated you, or I said so proud of you, is because I know that that process you went through is exactly how you're busting through old patterns, and you never know like what something like that, like how, like it really seems like a simple task, but man, what an awesome opportunity that we can heal from all of these situations in our lives. Like most people think, oh, I need to go see a therapist and pay for someone to walk me through some stuff. No, like when we learn these tools and these practices, everything is therapy. Everything is psychotherapeutic. Every relationship is valuable, even the ones that we're doing with inanimate objects, right? Which I was mentioning about Leslie's crafts and things. Like I love that. So the awareness is what creates choice, right? If we're in a state of reaction, obviously awareness is missing. And that's where we become impulsive, right? We make decisions that later in hindsight we might say that was a poor decision, right? But in the hindsight too, we get this insight, so then we can see, oh well, what should I do next time, right? And these patterns will show up more, right? They do show up more. And the idea of it is that you're always in a new place when you're rediscovering these different patterns that these parts are carrying, right? Which is where we get to come to this deeper place of witnessing, which is where we say every part wants to be understood. And this witnessing is the foundation of the healing, right? It's like, I see you, I hear you, you matter, right? And we let all of these parts know, I see you, I hear you, you matter. And Rabbi Shaman, when he was on, he was really talking about this witnessing and how creative we can be with how we witness our parts, right? And this is why I love shamanism so much, because we can use the elements and different ways to be creative and witness and see and hear our parts and make sure that they matter, right? Like one of my parts was feeling so much rage one day that I was like, well, like how can we be with this in a way where it's not overwhelming? And for whatever reason, he got this image of, he just wanted raindrops falling on him, raindrops of light just falling on him. And I literally just had like a whole like monsoon of rain come over, and it would just light him up with light as it would hit him. And it was just like very windy and gusty, and there's just like, it looked chaotic, right? It looked like he was in a storm, but it was just like he was just enjoying, like he was like having like playing in the puddles and like didn't care. Like he was really enjoying it. So like the wind and the water was really healing and cathartic for him, right? And how I was witnessing him in those moments. And this was just putting him in a place that where he was at he didn't like. So I was like, well, where do you want to go instead? And then he gave me all these other places that he would rather be. And I'm just witnessing, I'm just noticing, I'm just being present, I'm validating with what's coming up for him. And I'm just saying, well, like, what would actually allow you to receive healing, or to, start to trust certain situations? Like his thing about being in the rage, he didn't trust anything, right? That was partly why he was so angry, actually. I mean, he didn't really even trust me when I first started to share with him, to be with him, right? So it took a little bit of, getting him to trust me before we can get to that place with the rain and the raindrops of light hitting him, right? It took a little bit of building fostering a relationship with him before he would really let me witness him in this healing capacity.
Um, I have a question, but I'm not quite sure if it's going to come out right. When we talk about the IFS thing, and you can move between parts, one, you have your firefighter and everything. Can it be the same thing like, so I was self-led for the motorhome. Is there now the next I don't know, obstacle, for want of a better word, that comes up? Am I still self-led, or am I starting all over again?
That's a good question. So the idea is
Yeah,
that
like,
every moment you could be self-led, or a part you could be blended with a part. Like each moment
okay.
we vacillate
So
between that.
that, so the next obstacle, as I said, for want of a better word, I would then consciously or unconsciously go through the process of unblending again.
Yeah, yeah, unblending and then getting to this part, the witnessing of them. Like really like hearing their fears, really listening to their stories, listening to, whatever it is that's burdening them, right? Because this witnessing of them, once you unblend, this is actually what's going to foster the unburdening process.
Yeah.
So this opens them up to healing. Sometimes it feels healing that this happens, right? Sometimes it feels very healing that this alone happens, that we're able to witness parts. Like being able to separate and do that is actually a really big achievement, right? And sometimes it's so simple and subtle of a process, but sometimes we don't realize how subtle that awareness is, that it expands and we like it creates even more space, right? Which I hope this is okay. I even remember with Leslie when she had her first unblending experience, and we're doing it through text, right? And it was like, wow, this is incredible, right? And you're able to really like open up this possibility for unburdening,
Yeah.
right? Where they didn't feel alone and by themselves. And I think you even had like a speed racer as one of them or something or the other.
That was wild. It was like, where are you going? Shoo, 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 shoo. It's like, quit running. Quit running.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the witnessing of being with those parts in those situations, this is what creates the bridge from pain to peace, which you start to notice actually, I think it was like a couple days later, with your gut and stuff. You're having a lot of different parts doing the different things, and just because you're able to unblend, I remember you did it with your husband, right? And you started to ripple that out in all different places, right?
Yes.
And the same thing for you, Leanne, right? You're starting to see it as well as you're practicing more and more on distinguishing what's a protector, what's a vulnerable, and then when is self actually showed up, right? Which the question really comes down to, who's speaking right now? Was that a part of you that's speaking, or is that self that's speaking? Who's speaking right now? Which voice was that? Which, of
And
course, the miracle says ego or spirit, right?
right. And I've learned to ask that myself. And it's like, it's helped me so much. It's like, who is upset?
Yeah.
And that's generally how I, you know, see it. Is like somebody is very upset in the here and is just going nuts. And it's like, who is upset? And helping that part come out and tell me who they are. And that was just life changing. Well, how old are
Mm-hmm.
you? What's your
Mm-hmm.
name? Which part
Mm-hmm.
of me is that? What's your problem? And then, I learned to take them and sing Be Quiet, Be Still with them until they
Yeah,
calm down and
beautiful.
talk.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, what
That's a
you're really
beautiful song. Yeah,
and
you
and
sang that for us. Yeah.
and what you're noticing is this whole left side here is what's facilitating. You're seeing them. You're noticing what's happening. You're listening with your full attention, right? You're understanding how they felt, right? And you're like, oh, okay, I get that. That makes sense that you feel that way, right? And you just stay with them until they feel safe and they feel appreciated, and most of these parts never experience this ever. That's why they keep doing their what we call is their rackets, right? They're getting paid under the table for something.
Yeah. And that's like the Speedy Gonzalez part that was just running, running, running.
Yep.
Um, when I was led by Holy Spirit to sit by a rock. And that part came back because I wasn't chasing her anymore. And it was like, oh, and she sat on the other side of the rock.
Uh-huh.
And then, we were able to talk. But it was when I quit pursuing that she was like, oh, okay, and came back. And then when she came around, when you guided me to have her come back around, she crawled up in my lap and burst into tears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm tired
But
of crying, but crying is healing.
yeah, it is.
My gosh, such a crybaby.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that we're learning in these crybaby parts of ourselves is that we're not trying to fix them actually. We're just letting them actually cry, like
Yeah,
fully, without stopping them from crying. We're just letting them be fully seen and their wounds and all, right? And just whatever it is that they're burdened with. And I know a lot of people, they come into this work trying to correct and fix and all this stuff. And what we're really learning is that we're just adding deeper places of connection within ourselves. We're expanding what's called our window of presence. And as we expand the window of presence, which they say in trauma trainings, it's called the window of tolerance. So it's like where you're able to stay present before you either go into hypervigilance, where you go into a fight flight response, or you get kicked out of your window of tolerance where you go hypovigilance, where you freeze or shut down or collapse, or typically we fawn there, right? So then as this window of tolerance, or what I like to call the window of presence, expands, we become more resilient to life's ebbs and flows, where we can stay within self-led and actually have solutions to the things that are presenting themselves to us.
So is sleeping freezing?
It depends on the manner or the way in which you're operating from. Because, for instance, it could be that you just had a powerful release and you need the rest,
Right.
right?
No,
Or
it's
it
usually
could,
escape.
or it could be, I don't want to deal with this. Let me go to sleep, right?
That's the
Uh,
one.
so it's the manner in which it's done, because rest is a huge component to this work that we're doing. Our nervous system's capacity can only do so much work before we need to rejuvenate, restore ourselves, and then come back stronger. And this is
Yeah.
what we call as pendulation, right? So
Yeah.
I know some people, when they learn this stuff, they want to do it all the time, but their capacity is not able to, and it actually overwhelms them,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you can only do as much as you can do, and the more that you then stretch your edge, right? You don't push yourself where you injure, but you push yourself where you're starting to get out of that comfort zone. Then that's where you're able to do more and more and more and more, right? Where maybe all day long you're just working with parts,
Yeah.
right? And
Napping in
not and not and
here.
not feeling exhausted or overwhelmed or anything like that, right?
Right. Yeah, I can tell when I just actually need to sleep because of the work that's been being done, and when I want to sleep to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, and usually after we've done like a deep unburdening process, rest is like it usually comes right after, right?
Right.
And this is kind of what I was sharing earlier about with one of my parts that I was witnessing. It's not common to witness a part and unburden at the same time, right? Sometimes it takes witnessing them in different aspects, and then they can be ready for unburdening, right? Which we'll go into how to invite a part into unburdening, and then we'll also go into some of the things that parts show themselves that they're ready to be unburdened, right? So we'll keep going deeper into this unburdening process. Uh, but here, what we're really doing in it is just, like I said, showing them how to lay down the things that they've been carrying for way too long, right? So unburdening is the moment when a burdened part lets go of what it's been carrying, which we've been saying in the gene keys is around allow. So you allow the part to take space, accept whatever stories and feelings and sensations the part's experiencing, and then embrace, where you embrace the fullness of the burden and the part, so that way the burden can be unburdened, right? Allow, accept, embrace. It's the art of letting go, which happens in this threefold practice. But this is where because the burdens could be an intense emotion of like fear, shame, terror, sadness. It could be an intense, painful sensation, which you guys remember from other trainings. We talked about how the sensation channel is the first thing that gets shut down. Why is the sensation channel the first thing that gets shut down?
Don't know, because we don't want to feel it
Yes, but why?
because it hurts. It's uncomfortable.
Because the present state is too uncomfortable. The present state is unsafe. I can't trust the present, right? So what we're learning, as soon as something happens that's too much too soon, too much for too long, or not enough for too long, that present state awareness gets so unbearable, the sensations get so overwhelming, we shut down our hearts, and then we go live up in our head. We go live from the neck up, right? And then next the emotions get shut down after, right? But the
right?
sensations is so key because if we can learn to expand our capacity to be with the sensations, this is actually where the healing shows up because we're in the present state. Or we return back to the present state. Or we start to untether where we feel the present moment is not safe or we don't trust it. Which is where a lot of these harsh beliefs start to come in, right? Like I'm not good enough or I'm unworthy or it's my fault, right? Usually like guilt and things like this. This is because something happened that was too much too soon, too much for too long, or not enough for too long that it was so unbearable we shut it down and then it loops into these beliefs. We made up a belief about ourselves or an identity and we created this survival role that we then keep looping and maybe we're people pleasing during it. Maybe we become perfectionists where we have to do perfect. Maybe we have to control things. We have to control other people, right? There's just that, like I said, the hypervigilance that might show up. These are all the different types of burdens that these parts are carrying.
And mine was
Sorry,
was
Dylan.
sick to my stomach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now my stomach has not been hurting very much at all.
That's incredible.
Love
Congratulations.
that.
You.
Love
I'm
that for you.
It's like, come on. Every once in a while it'll get and it's like I need to sit up different or something because it's hurting, but and then it goes away. So it is healing.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's incredible.
Yeah, and that burden too that you're feeling in the gut was necessary once upon a time. It's just not necessary now, right? Which is what you're learning and how to release the burden.
Yes.
Which unburdening can be a very ceremonial or spontaneous process, right? I mentioned about the raining of the light on my part. This was like a spontaneous thing that occurred, right? Not all parts are ready for things like that, but some are, right? Many
Yeah.
parts choose to release their burdens to one of the different elements, right? Which is why I really love shamanism so much because it just restores us back to Mother Nature and to connecting with our nurturing mother as well as with our father, right? And we can do it through different things, like I was mentioning, where there was the gust of airs with the water and the light was all was hitting. It was like illuminating everything, right? So light they also consider as ether as a space element, right? And then you have earth, air, water, and fire. And each of the elements obviously provide different ways in which we can release things. Like, for instance, with earth, there's this powerful stability and grounding quality to it where you could both receive and transform. So, something that I used to do with some of my clients, especially if they have what's called a broken heart, I would tell them to go and put your heart on the dirt and just lay flat on the dirt. You could either have your hands like this or like actually just like allow the if you're on dirt, allow the dirt to like be in your face,
Yeah.
right? And just look at the dirt and like literally just put your heart on the floor and allow the heartbreak to that energy to go into the earth. And the
Yes.
earth will start to neutralize these energies with you and for you, right? If you're really sensitive and really aware and paying attention in the presence, you can actually see what it's actually detoxifying with you.
Amen. You know, Dylan, you don't know this, but and I'm gonna have to leave after I make this comment. Is in 2006, 4 or 6, the Lord just engaged me while I was working in my yard. And
Mm,
he engaged my heart in such a way that I was just like blown away.
mm,
And I started sobbing, and his presence was so heavy on me, I couldn't move. And I wound up on the ground, sobbing, weeping into the dirt, eating grass, eating
yep.
the ground. And that was the beginning of all of this inner healing and trauma work that was going on. Is because we Christians, we use the earth, wind, air, water, and fire as well. Um, and the stoichion, which are the elements, and all of that fun stuff. We're in embracing those things now in our journey.
It's
And
beautiful.
it's just been incredible. So,
Hmm.
yay, I'm looking forward to all of these wonderful um, charts that you've made. They're really good and they're very helpful to have. I need to print out the last two sets of them because I just do better when I can have them in front of me and
Yeah.
look at them.
Yeah, I'll make sure you have these so you can print them out, especially for next week because we'll continue going down the model, and you'll have them ready for you.
Yes. And last week I don't, I haven't printed them out. So I need to do that as
I
well
think
because I
I think
missed
last week was from the same PDF that this is, so you'll have all of them when I send this to you.
awesome. Fabulous, fabulous. Love y'all. It's been
Yeah,
so
have
good.
love you too. Have a great next call.
Thank you, dear. Bye now.
Bye for now. Okay, so questions about the unburdening process, or at least about like what is unburdening and how burdens look, and then how burdens are released. Because once the burden leaves, the part's free. That's the idea.
When,
And mhm.
sorry, just the last part, sorry, is you've got number 5, invite new qualities. Number 6, when you've got reconnect with protectors, is that just something that you do all the time, or in that specific instance, you would go back and say, like you did with the other ones, and ask them how they were? Is that what
That's
you
a
mean
good
by reconnect?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's go through the whole thing and then we'll circle back to 5 and 6. Right? Because
Sure.
this
Yep.
this process right here in the center, this could be both gentle or intense, right? But it's always in the relationship with the self and these parts, right? So, and also too, something that I hear often is that, when we're in this healing, that we dissolve or get rid of parts, which just isn't true. They take on new roles, which is what number 5 is kind of hinting at, is inviting new qualities, right? So healing is really helping the part to release what never belonged to it, right? So the first thing, like we mentioned, was about witnessing, where self gets to know the part and its experience. And that's, its emotions it's feeling, its sensations it's feeling, the beliefs that it holds, the survival role that it's taken on. And then we go back together. Self goes back in past to be with the part, because this part is rooted in the past moment. And it's like almost like we have to go retrieve the part from the past and update it to the present moment, right? Which is what we use the term to update it, right? Because some of these beliefs and some of these things that they're carrying, some of these burdens that they're holding on to, you'll recognize that they're never in the present. That's always going to be the case. So it's like self goes and bees with them where they're at in the past, so that way the self can ask or be with this part in such a way, build a relationship and trust in such a way, and witness it and see it in such a way that then when you invite it to the present moment, it might be open. And I say might be open because it might need more trust.
Yeah. So, um, how um, uh, how do you know if it's too much too soon, or too much for too long, or not enough for too long? Is that something that you know going in, or is that what you're asking the part?
Um, so usually if there's something that was too much too soon, too much for too long, or not enough for too long, the part, that's what they're carrying in their intense emotions and their painful sensations and their belief systems. So those three categories is what we say is the heart of an event happened. And in that event, if it fell into those three categories, this trauma occurred where now this part became burdened. And that part became burdened maybe to protect itself at first, like it created a protection. But then after that moment, it held on to its protection and then it became more burdened, right? And then it's been carrying something that it's been trying to protect, 20 years ago, right? The event happened 20 years ago, but maybe the burden has been carried for 20 years now. Now, let's say like an event happened that was too much too soon,
Oh,
too much too soon, not enough for too long, right? Let's say that something like this happened and a protector came in and protected you, but then let's say when the situation left and you tended to that part would still exist, but it wouldn't be burdened because it needed to protect you. So the protector still exists, but maybe because it wasn't burdened, maybe it has a number five, these new qualities that these burdened parts have. This is like essentially what's going on if the part wasn't burdened, right? The part gets to have these qualities of its own choosing. So maybe it's like a protector of joy or a protector of peace, right? Like I'm very family oriented because of my upbringing and how we didn't really have each other's backs actually. So like now I've unburdened this part in such a way that he's a protector of family for me. Like he makes sure I like that he can show up for people even if they don't show up for themselves or show up for me, right? And at first he was burdened. He used to be upset that people wouldn't show up or return calls, or right. He felt like he actually felt inadequate. He felt like he wasn't good enough, actually, right? And then he realized it had nothing to do with that act. It had that was just the burden from the upbringing of the situation that presented it. But once I unburdened him, he's like super happy to be showing up for people, even if they don't show up. This part is, right? Now I have another part that's got issues with it that I'm working with, right? So it's like we got all these different parts that are doing all these different things. But what's important about to notice, because this is a lot of what we say when we're blended. If a part is angry, we say, I'm angry, right? And then we say, oh, they're just an angry person. Oh, they're just diabolical, right? So then we make the burden the identity, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
We do this to others, we do it to
100%.
ourselves, right? And the part and what we're doing is, well, if these are just our results that show us where we are, not who we are, well then who the heck am I, right? And that's where we start to really unravel what's beneath these burdens, right? And that's where we can actually start to release the burdens too, because they're able to let go of what's no longer what they no longer need to carry, but they thought at one point they needed to.
Yeah.
Like I had a part that used to carry a lot of shame for my family. I felt very shameful for my family, and it was just something that he heard from my dad that was talked about. It wasn't even directed to him. It was actually directed towards my brother, and it was something that he heard that he thought he was like referring to him. So he like picked up this burden that had nothing to
Oh,
do with him at all, actually, but he just carried it thinking that, oh, this is what you do for the family, you just carry these burdens, right? And I picked it up just
yes, yes.
witnessing this happening to my, again, it had nothing to do with me, but I made it about me. And as I start to recognize this, I mean, it took years obviously to unravel this, but that's where I got to invite this part, once it unburdened, into a new quality, a new way of how it showed up. This part actually used to be always on alert, always tired, always exhausted, and depressed. And then once I got to unburden this part, uh, I mean, this is probably a lot of the reasons why I wake up on the good side of bed most days. Like I don't really know what it's like to be debilitated by depression anymore, right? But this part was very
Yes.
much debilitated by depression, and I
It's
made it
awful, isn't it?
I made it my identity, right? And I carried that for a good amount of time. I would say I really kicked that out of my identity, out of my personality, probably when I was around 27, which I'm 33 now, right? So it took me a long time to really get these wirings out of my personality, right? And it's just what I was practicing. And that's why it's important to, once you invite these new qualities with these parts and they have these new roles, to reconnect with these protectors again. Because sometimes when you have some parts that unburden and release, it opens up space for other parts that maybe weren't ready to unburden. So we start to see
Yeah.
your mind starts to open up more, your heart starts to open up more, and this is like a domino effect. So it opens up more opportunity for more parts to be unburdened. And then you just kind of
Mm.
repeat this cycle over and over again, right? When you reconnect with them, maybe they do need more thinking. You kind of go back into the same process, right? The same loop, if you will. They also call this, by the way, an Ouroboros, what we're talking about here. And an Ouroboros is the
What is
snake
it?
eating its own tail. An
Oh,
Ouroboros
yep, yep,
is the snake
yep.
eating its own tail, and it's the sign of destruction or the sign of transformation, depending on how you're operating with it,
Which end of the
right?
snake you're on.
So the snake eating its own tail, right? Like these parts that are burdened are very much in a destructive pattern with it, right? But once they become unburdened, now that snake eating its own tail becomes a form of transformation. It's the same exact thing, right? It's the same snake eating its own tail, just a very different operating approach that shows up with it.
I can see that that's happened in terms of not drinking anymore because back then I was a drinker
Mm-hmm.
and that was how it was and that's
Mm-hmm.
what I was. But it actually wasn't what I was. It was just a little part of all the other thousand things I also did.
Right.
But that's the only thing that I've found now is that I know for a fact that none of what's happened in my life, good or bad, would
Mm-hmm.
have maybe not have even happened had I still been drinking, or it would have been a very different scenario anyway. There's no way I would have been able to deal with any of the stuff and the illnesses and hospitalizations and,
Mm-hmm.
disability, all of that. It's just been so much. And Tim dying should have been the catalyst, but it wasn't. But I believe now that that was a catalyst for all the other things that have since happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
no way I would have started a Facebook group that's nearly at 2,000 members
Mm.
or bought a motorhome or, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly. And what you start to notice too with these parts that were burdened, specifically a firefighter, right? That was the one that was drinking. As soon as it became
Yeah.
unburdened, you had this opportunity with it to invite it into something else that it would like to experience instead, right? So once you release the pain of the drinking and all that good stuff that showed up with that part, the beliefs around it, and again, it could have been multiple parts all tethered around that. The part got to choose what it wanted to receive, whether it was love that you feel worthy of love, whether it was safety that you feel safe to drink, or safe to be in the world without drinking, whether it was grounding, whether it was joy. It could be freedom, it could be belonging, right? Because it sounds like you created a Facebook group, right? So you want it to be connected and accepted by other people, right? So there's like all these different things that the part gets to this specific part gets to choose what it wants to receive or what it wants to, I guess, be like a champion of instead. And this happens every single time we unburden. It creates this inner space, and then that space can't remain empty. We have to fill it up with something life-giving.
Yeah. I think definitely freedom happened for me and confidence, I think. But the confidence has been a very long time
Yep.
coming, a very long time. I appear confident and I always have appeared that way. And I am confident. I don't mean I'm incompetent, but I very much have never trusted myself really.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right? So
The
like it's
love
like
one, I
one
still haven't got that one.
what oh well maybe there's another part blocking it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. What we can say, sorry, the confidence one.
I don't remember.
Oh, I was just saying it's taken me a long time to have confidence in myself to be able to even make decisions for myself.
Right. Right. Yeah, and as you keep working with these other parts that are burdened, they will have a similar opportunity that these other parts already experienced, right? Because that's what we're noticing with all this alchemical work that we're doing, is that the part that was once hurting can choose how it wants to thrive after it processes those uh, heavy emotions and heavy feels, and right, as you're really able to transform those emotions and sensations into something new, into this unburdening process. This is where we start to integrate the whole system, where these parts will start to help other parts, especially like with this part that got unburdened and then confidence came through. That confidence is
Mm.
helping other parts that maybe didn't feel so confident, or maybe that freedom that it experienced is now showing that it's possible for other parts that maybe aren't experiencing freedom, right? And
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happens is this inner harmony starts to show up, because we can see that the parts don't have to fight for attention, that they can all work as like a unit with one another. And this also too stops us from reacting the way that we do, right? So self can keep showing up and guiding these parts, uh, which I think the next slide really highlights a lot, is about how when self leads, parts follow.
Yeah.
Like all the time, they trust and they follow. Like the managers relax, the firefighters drop their defenses, and then the exiled parts can actually start to receive the healing, where everybody, and that's what it means, like when you got the exiled healed, to go back to the protectors, the ones that were protecting the exiled, right? Because they still have burdens. Sometimes they might like step aside so the exiled can receive healing, but it doesn't mean that they all receive healing. It just means that that exiled was healed, but we get to go back to those protectors and then unburden them, and then see, do the same process for them, right, which we're shown in the other slide before.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's good to see
And
it written like that, though, because I can literally say, yeah, yeah, that happened, that happened.
right,
And it's
yeah.
funny, and I never thought that I would be too sick to work or anything like that. But on the other hand, I'm so grateful because it's afforded me an opportunity to slow down, which has been very hard for me to learn, but
Mm,
also to realize that um, I am I am worthy of this. I am worthy of the gift of a pension. You know, it's even the little things like that that I've been struggling with. I can see now that are changing.
mm. That's
And I
beautiful.
sit
Yeah.
outside and I watch the butterflies and I go, oh, this beats being at work. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter
it
that I
does.
can't lift my arm over my head, but that's all right.
That's great. That's awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. Yeah, it warms my heart. Who would have thought your later lives would be some of your best ones?
Look, I can't believe it. But the funny thing is, if I hadn't gotten as sick as I did, maybe, like maybe I'd sort of still be working. Like I wouldn't, the opportunities to be with Georgia and everything wouldn't have appeared in the same way. That's for sure. If I was still trying to live the other life that I was struggling to hold together.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep. Good stuff. So something that's important to know too about the self is that when self is leading, every part knows it doesn't have to do everything alone.
Yes,
So every
I'm
single
learning
one of
that.
these parts will feel like they're doing everything by themselves or alone or in competition to another part. And the self is really just showing up in a way that can actually bring the calm and clarity into maybe there's conflict or chaos,
Yeah.
right? Because again, the parts are just trying to keep you safe, but the self is actually what keeps you safe.
But the
And we're just
parts can
relating
guide
to,
you to that self.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the self is never trying to control. So whenever we see control in the space, oh, what's up, manager? Welcome. I
All
see
right.
you,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Because once we're able to do that too, then this part that's controlling would actually receive the guidance from self. It'll actually trust its leadership and allow itself to rest, actually.
Mm.
And that's where the parts start to collaborate, right? Where then the connection and flow and all the good stuff starts to show up in our lives in a different situations that are occurring in our lives because all the
Yes.
parts feel seen and valued.
Yes.
Which any conflict you have
Yes.
with any person, you could see you don't feel seen or valued, or they don't feel seen or valued. Every single time, that's where the conflict shows. So I really like this part on the right hand side. It talks about the results of self leadership, where you could see you're no longer at war inside yourself. There's an
Yes.
inner peace, a foundation of inner peace
Yes.
that's developed, and we start to see that we have stronger relationships with ourselves and others. Right? We start to see our relationships strengthen and improve, which you're already noticing with your daughter, for instance.
Yeah.
And we start to recognize
One
too
daughter
that
anyway.
we make choices that align with what matters. So those poor decisions that I was talking about earlier, when we're having parts run the show, we start to like examine and question, should I do that? Right? Instead of
Yeah.
just being
Yeah. Yeah.
impulsive, oh, I should totally do this, right? We're able to actually take a pause and reflect on some of the consequences that might show up, some of the possibilities that might show up, and some of the freedom of, oh, well, maybe there's more options I could choose, right? Instead of being tunnel vision, maybe I can expand and take a step back and be like from an eagle's eye perspective, right? Which
Yeah.
eagles can see up to a mile in the distance, which is crazy.
Wow.
Can you
Yes.
imagine seeing a
Yes.
mile away? It's crazy. I could barely see an ant right in front of me.
Yeah, I know.
And a lot of people,
Like that.
when they're having these experiences, even the subtle ones where we're unblinding and meeting parts, a lot of people will think that they're not doing deep work. But this is actually where the lasting transformations start to show up
Yeah.
because the parts aren't changing. It's the whole system's being transformed.
I think in the Western world we expect a bit of wailing and moaning and chest beating and all of that sort of stuff. And it doesn't need to really be like that.
Sometimes the unburdening process is intense, right? So, like for instance, some of these parts that for me had a lot of rage. Oh no, they definitely needed to
Oh,
pound on some
sure.
stuff and yell in some
Yeah,
stuff, and
sure.
so
Yeah.
it definitely shows up in all kinds of ways. And that's where I was mentioning too when we're doing this work to be mindful of the capacity in which our nervous system can stay present, right? Because once we
Yeah.
get kicked out of our window of tolerance, we're really not doing any work actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're actually further traumatizing ourselves in those states, right? But that's like when we're destabilized, right? If we get to a
Yes.
destabilization, which is not the same as being overwhelmed, by the way. A destabilization and overwhelm, there's like levels to how overwhelm shows up, and a destabilization is like the whole next level. And then
Yeah, I'm
even
in
from,
overwhelm at the moment, but I
yeah,
was destabilized before. And I think what
totally.
I mean by that statement I made is that I don't think people realize until they're exposed to your world that that little quiet thing that you do in the daytime or the little piece of self-care that you give to yourself, that's all part of it. It doesn't all have to be, lying on the chest, lying on the floor, kicking your
I got
feet.
I got what you're
They
saying. Yeah,
it can be little bits and pieces,
I I get what you're
and we
saying.
don't see it
Absolutely.
like until you said rest, like, and you even messaged me, "Are you resting?" And I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah.
First thing I look around and go, "Fuck, I'm overwhelmed. What am I going to overwhelm myself with first today?"
Yeah.
So this morning I thought, "Oh, I'll finish cleaning the fridge. That's a good thing to do at 7 a.m." Like, yeah. No, you could also sit and have a cup of coffee and watch the birds.
Right.
You
Not
know?
some of your parts don't believe that though.
No.
Right? Yeah, no, I definitely get what you're saying, and I love that too because
Yeah.
I love modeling this for people. So like a lot of my clients know they can't really contact me on Thursdays. Like
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
full. I don't. I'm not on my
That's your day
phone.
off.
I'm off on that day. Now there's times that I
Yeah.
have called or I have talked to a client on a Thursday. It was like they were like freaking out, right? And I just
Yeah. Yeah.
happened that Thursday to have my phone next to me, and I saw it ringing.
Wow.
So then I was like, oh yeah, I'll answer it, and and I just walked them through like a process that took 5 or 10 minutes, but for them that was life saving, right?
Changed their whole
Who knows?
week.
Who
Like,
knows how long they would have been
yes.
spiraling if I didn't answer that call? Like I have no
100%.
idea,
Yeah.
right? But for me, it was like such a serendipitous thing, just because I don't ever have my phone on me, so I can't respond, if someone calls. But it just happened to be one of those great connection moments where not only did he get he was overwhelmed and freaking out, he not only became calm and centered, but this actually showed up for him the next day. This integration of that
Oh,
relationship we
integration.
established there. Yeah, so like
Fantastic.
he was having all these parts. He was having managers show up. He was having firefighters show up. He was having his exiled that were being not seen or heard or acknowledged, right?
Oh,
And all I did
gosh.
in this 5 and 10 minutes is I saw and heard and valued each of his parts that were showing up in that moment. And then they
Did he
stopped
know that he
fighting.
had parts showing
No,
up? Did he get that?
he's not familiar with this language. Yeah.
Oh, right,
So
right. Yeah, yeah.
so obviously for him in that moment, I didn't talk about parts, which is explicit. I did direct access
Implicit.
implicitly, right? Where I just talked right to the parts and I showed up with self and these parts stopped fighting each other. Really quickly they start to work as a unit, right? And they started to come as a team and this inner unity started to show up. I'm not even joking, instantaneously.
Instantly.
As soon as self showed up on the scene, which was right when I answered the phone call, everything started to reorganize. Everything started to integrate inside of himself. Right? It was
So he helps
immediate.
here.
Yeah, it was immediate, right? And
Yeah,
he got to have this
yeah,
experience that one of
yeah.
his parts, this was like late at night too, or it was like later in the night, and he was freaking out because of something like when he wakes up in the morning, like he's got a lot of chaos that happens in the morning, right?
In the
And we
morning,
got
yeah.
to be and we got to be with these parts in such a way that I gave him a very simple instruction in the morning. I said, in the morning, we're gonna be with this part. I said, I'm gonna call you, right? And like me just like calling him in the morning was just another really big deal for him,
Just,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
to have some
yeah,
and I
yeah,
said, "Hey, I'm going to call you and we're going to be with this part," right? So first once they got all organized and stopped fighting each other, we then made this commitment we're going to follow up the next day. We're going to integrate the next morning, right? And he was
yeah.
freaking out about the
100%.
morning and whatever it was that was going on with him. All I did was just show him implicitly how to realign his parts, right? How
Yeah,
to start being aware, how to start being compassionate with these parts, how to start setting up this deeper trust with them. Which the next morning, by the way, he normally wakes up in a terror. The next morning, he
mm,
did not wake up in a terror, and that's why I was gonna call
fantastic.
him was because when he woke up, I was gonna like support him in his wake up, and he was already
Yeah,
feeling
yeah,
better because of this work we did in that 5 or 10 minutes. Right? He showed up with more energy in the morning. He showed up more clear in the morning. He showed up already with a deeper relationship to these parts. One, because we just tended to them, and they knew we were going to talk with them in the morning, and they weren't freaking out. They were less
they had
agitated in the morning.
direction.
Yeah,
Yeah, they knew what was happening.
yeah,
It
they
was
weren't
that they was
scared.
in their within their control a bit more. They're not so scared anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. They weren't terrified the way that they were, right? And so he was already in self energy when I talked with him the next morning. And because he was in self energy, this is where his part unburdened and got to integrate a new way of showing up, right? This was such a quick process, right? It was at 5 or 10 minutes, and we talked maybe 20,
Yeah.
30 minutes the next morning. Like it wasn't even that
Wow.
long. And this part usually has him feels like he has to throw up every morning. And he was like
Yes,
so
I have a friend like
anxious,
that. Yeah.
and he's like he was so this part was so anxious, and right, this 20 minutes of processing, maybe it was maybe 30 minutes of being with him, this never showed up again from that moment.
I can imagine how wonderful it was for him to enjoy the morning for a change and for the people around him as well.
Totally. He still
Oh
has
my
rough morning.
gosh.
He still has rough mornings. There's other parts that's going on, but he definitely has better mornings, right? They're getting easier now,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
But now
yeah.
what showed up for him too is he's creating a line of support for his morning, so that when he wakes up, he doesn't feel alone. He has this support system. That's totally
Yeah, yeah.
new. He would have never had
Knowledge
that
is power.
capacity. Yeah, he would have never had that capacity. And now he's setting that up for himself so that way he can have these long lasting growths and substantial shifts that's happening. This is the heart of integration, right? Being able to actually do this and show up multiple times for these parts, right? Authentically and compassionately, right? With kindness. Which, there's like these other parts that definitely don't like each other and stuff like that going on. But the start
Yeah.
of this integration process has already unfolded. And from there, it's like
Wow.
an avalanche. If he just keeps doing the same thing, which it is getting easier for him now to talk with these parts and use the parts language. Before, he wasn't even able to have that kind of conversation, right? And now it's like really easy for him to start speaking in that way and to, um, even start to do this with other people in his relationship. Which actually, this will be the
Yeah.
last slide that we go over today. And
Okay.
this one's really important because this relational burdening is when parts have been carrying pain, fear, or old roles. They're seen and supported in relationship where the burden no longer has to be carried alone. So this is kind of what I was mentioning with that 5 or 10 minute call, right? There's this relational unburdening that was happening. But now that he learned this in that moment and the next morning too, right? There's that relational unburdening. He's now doing this with other people that he supports, right? So it's like
Oh,
he
right,
experienced
right.
it, right? And now he's like, "Oh, I have access to this," and he's now sharing it, right? And this is just a natural part of the healing process, but this relational unburdening is the sacred process of witnessing and supporting each other's parts so they can release what they no longer need to carry. Obviously, we're doing that
That's what
here and
you and
together.
Heather were talking about
Yep.
yesterday.
Yep. This is
Yeah,
exactly what Heather and I do. Our whole
yeah,
relationship is built off of
yeah.
this. And this is what we're teaching other couples and marriages. This is what most marriages and couples are missing. And it's not just
I'm
couples.
missing
It's families, it's daughter
everyone.
mother dynamics, it's everybody, it's
Yeah.
coworkers, right? It's everybody who's not able to really see this relational unburdening opportunity, right? But once we start to have this eye for it, it becomes natural. It actually, this is why some people tell me, I don't care what tools you got going on. I don't even care about what you're teaching. Just the fact that you're present with me, I receive healing. I've had multiple people tell me that. They're like, I don't even care about all this stuff that you're sharing. Just that you're present, I'm receiving so much healing. Because in this
Yeah.
deep presence, parts feel safe enough to soften, to speak, and then to go through the letting go process where they can allow, they can accept, and they can embrace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where, too, you know me, I'm always beating the drum about the present state. right? And
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
why, because there's no burden, there's no illness, there's no thing in this world that can't resist the healing capacity of presence. And most things, I would say, I would argue, especially from the course's perspective, most of the illness people experience is because they're not present to what's keeping them sick. And this is where we're learning how to acknowledge these things. I mean, even with Leslie's share about her stomach stuff, right? It was
Yeah,
persistent
that's
for a long
fabulous.
time until she was able to,
Gosh.
recognize the part, witness it in
Yeah.
this relational unburdening process, connect with it, listen it, witness it, hold space, and then poof, it released. And now she's like
She's a
integrating that
legend.
release, right? So we're all having these experiences. You're having it with the motorhome. She's having it with that, right? We're witnessing each other have these experiences, which also goes to this relational unburdening, right? This is
Yeah.
really important when you're doing it with another person, which in trauma language they call as co-regulation, to be
Mm-hmm.
co-regulated,
Heard that term yet?
right? Because it's creating stability, it's creating trust, it's creating safety, it's creating connection. We feel
You
grounded,
do that with
right?
us with the breathing.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And the breath creates more presence and awareness, and then that creates more empathy, that creates more safety, right? This whole healing process starts to unfold where we can actually experience freedom. And something too, this is like a really big part of integration, especially people working with entheogens, is people have these big openings and then they'll go isolate themselves. And what happens is when they have these big openings and they isolate themselves, this unburdening that happens and that spaciousness they create, they don't fill it back up. So then it
Yeah.
actually becomes burdened again. They just fill it
A
back up because
different
they're
way.
burdened,
Yeah.
right? So then it feels
Yeah.
like they had this big opening and they had this catharsis, but then it was like this rubber band effects where they kind of go back to the old thinking and believing and stuff like that. And they're like, man, I was feeling so great. What happened, right? And it's just because they didn't integrate this new relationship.
And what do they say? The universe hates a vacuum. It will automatically go in and fill it with something else.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I That's also why I keep mentioning with A Course in Miracles why I really love it talks about healing with another, where we can't actually accept the atonement, the undoing of these burdened parts unless we're doing it in togetherness. Like it's not possible to actually do it on our own, right? Because in this togetherness, we start to create this field where healing is not just possible, but it actually expands our connection where it actually is medicine. The connection itself is medicine. And that's where these things that we feel like were burdens become lighter. I mean, even when we
Yeah.
first met, right? You had a lot
Oh,
of burdens, and now that we're
oh
doing all this stuff
gosh.
in togetherness, it's not that it changed circumstances. Things are still happening. Life is happening, right? But
Yeah.
it's not as scary by yourself, right? It's like, oh, I have this group that I can be with and hold me through it, even though you're on the other side of the
Yes.
world, right?
Crazy, isn't it? How blessed are we? How
Yeah, it's
blessed
big
are
facts.
we?
We're extremely blessed. Yeah.
Mm, love it.
Yeah, if
And
we just want to see the blessing.
what you were saying about the gentleman that rang you on the phone, that's what happened to me when I went onto that website that day. It's like,
Yep.
and then what happened? Oh, thank you, Dylan.
Yeah,
Um,
great stuff.
just
I,
quickly, I've got the earth, air, water, and fire. What did you say about the light part of it? How do we, um, like earth was grounding? What did you say about light? Do you remember?
on
Because I
the
have
on the
light.
slide you're saying what did it said?
Um, how it's used in shamanism,
So
how
the
you
light
use all
is
the elements.
the light is sometimes it's also considered ether. Some see them as different elements too. It depends on tradition. But light is about
Right.
the illumination, right? So it like
Oh,
dissolve it like it like dissolves heaviness with truth. And that's kind of the similar way that ether functions. It creates a spaciousness so truth can actually fill the space, right? So it like
Illumination.
dissolves, yeah, it like dissolves the illusion. So then there's this uh uh transition space that happens, and that's what illumination does too, which is what we're doing with the jinkies, right? We're doing these self-illumination practices where we're purifying and we're illuminating, right? And this is definitely a big part of healing, is how to actually foster this light, how to stoke this light, which again we're also learning from the Course in Miracles too, how to be the light of the world, because that is our literally our function.
Yes, yes, it is.
But
Oh, thank
dang,
you,
it's a
Dylan, as
practice.
always.
Yeah, you're so
Yeah.
welcome. Yeah,
Beautiful lesson, as always.
I hope from this lesson you really see the unburdening and how to do that with some of the parts this week, especially as you keep unblending. Uh, Next
Seeing
week
it
too,
written like that,
right?
yes.
Yeah, and next week too we'll go
Thank
over
you.
what makes unburdening possible, and how to get
Yep.
how to get permission from protectors so we can unburden. And then also we'll go over some of the signs when it's like ripe for unburdening, right? So we'll go over that next week,
Awesome.
so that way we can start to notice them as we're working with our parts.
Oh, beautiful. And now the long wait begins.
Yeah.
Enjoy your day off tomorrow,
Thanks so
guys. Thank you
much.
so much, as
Yeah.
always. See
Have a
you
great
next
week.
week.
Yeah. Bye. See you next week. Shalom, shalom.